Good morning, dear people of the internet, and welcome to the Confessions of the Internet. It is the time of the year, or like the biannual time, that I go without a script to see if the internet makes sense anymore, because now I don't have time to overthink this video, which is great. There is a place on the internet called r/confessions. It's on Reddit, obviously. People go there to write their confessions, because where else are you going to tell people about the things you cannot tell your friends or your family or your partner, because it's either illegal or wrong or just would mess up your life in one way or another. And you're not a Catholic, so you cannot go confess to the pastor or whatever that's called. I always get confused between the leaders of religions in Christianity. Does not matter in this context. Where do you go? The internet. And where do you go where you can stay relatively anonymous if you try a little bit? On Reddit. So that's why r/confessions exist, and we are going to read a few of them today and decide whether this subreddit is a good idea for these people to post on, because I'm not sure about that. Before we get into all of that though, I have this very delusional plan of this channel supporting me through college and beyond, and you can help me with that for free, luckily, by subscribing and watching my videos. So if you could do that, I would be very grateful. So thank you for that. Now let's get started. The first confession we shall read is called "I made counterfeit bus passes and flooded the cafeteria." Already sounds very legal. 25 years ago, I was attending a private religious high school and hated it. I didn't grow up religious, I didn't want to go to chapel every morning, and I didn't want to be in Bible class. I wanted new ways to rebel and get the hell out of there and go to public school like a normal person. There were only 110 students, so there were no traditional buses. Instead, they had 4 or 5 contracted vans that would drop off at a different church, and parents could pick up their kids from that church instead of driving all the way to school. The bus passes were paper with 10 punches for $20. When you get to the van, the driver punches the ride, and when you run out, you go to the office and buy another $20 pass. I found a print shop with the exact same paper just a couple blocks from where my van would drop off, so before my mom came to the church to get me, I walked over there and made $10 worth of copies, trimmed them up nicely, and put them in my bag. The next day I sold them for $10 a pop. I sold several around the campus, but was not careful about who I offered them to. It was too much of a dopamine hit to get the sale, and let's be honest, for a high school sophomore to have $100 of walking around money was awesome. Someone threw me under the bus figuratively, and I got called to the pastor's office. He said, "Did you make counterfeit bus passes?" And I said no. He let me go back to class. Later that day my conscience got the best of me, so I went back to the office and confessed. To be clear, I didn't feel bad about the bus passes, I feel bad about lying. They suspended me from school for a week. I was livid. I told the truth. I shouldn't have been punished after telling the truth. So some of my other non-religious friends and I went down there during the Easter choir performance, but we didn't attend. We were there for revenge. Plucked up all the sinks with paper towels, stuffed the toilets and urinals full of paper, and flushed aggressively. Turned on all the sinks full blast and bailed. The gym, cafeteria, recreational building were all flooded. I did it. I flooded the Jesus concert. I finished that semester and went to a public school like a normal person. Well, I think it is perfectly fine to go to a religious school to a certain extent. Let's not go into that. But this person was obviously not having a great time there. I went to a religious primary school, by the way. It was a Catholic school. The only things religious that we did is that technically we had to pray every morning, but every teacher forgot about that after 2 weeks, so we didn't do that. And then every teacher had to read from the Bible every single morning, which they did, but like it was a different version to be more understandable for children. So that was actually fun. It was just fun stories that the teacher was reading to you. That's how I experienced that. And then every Christmas and every Easter we had like a concert thingy, which was also fun, and that's totally fine. This was different. They had to go to chapel every day, and they had a pastor in the school, which we did not have, because I don't think any school in the Netherlands has that. Anyhow, I was about to say that this is not really a confession, but it is, because he confessed the first thing of doing something wrong, of making the counterfeit bus passes, but he did not confess the flooding to the teachers, and now he cannot confess that to anyone in his life, because that's kind of weird. Those are 2 things that would be a crime if done in normal human society outside of school, because this is like, the school is the place where you learn. You got to be punished for fraudulent things, but you're still a child and in school, I guess. And flooding, the same. You're technically causing damage to the school, which is bad and you shouldn't do it. You should be punished for that as a child, but like if you grow out of it, it's fine. I do not know a whole lot about how children grow up and grow out of these things. I did find this story very funny though. As one commenter here says, "Hilarious that your conscience would lead you to confess about the passes, but be totally fine causing ridiculous amounts of water damage." This one is called The Girl I'm Dating Thinks I Am Mute While I Am Perfectly Able to Talk. Hi, I've never loved talking, or to say it better, I've always done mistakes talking. It's too easy to be misunderstood. Roughly 1 year ago, I decided to stop using my voice completely and I started using a small notebook when I have to engage in conversation. At the beginning, it was weird, but I started loving it till it became totally normal for me. 4 months ago, I was on the tube and a girl approached me. She is really beautiful and nice. We had this sort of weird conversation where she was talking and I was writing. Fast forward, we are dating now and she still thinks that I'm mute. I really don't know what to do because I like her and I don't want her to react bad to the truth. This person has chosen to not talk because it feels better for them. In that case, I think they should keep doing that, and if they want to talk vocally to the person they are dating, I think it would be totally fine. Break the silence when you explain that you'd rather not talk to most people because of these reasons. I think this is totally valid. I do think that the other person might react weirdly because it's not a usual thing to come across, but I also think it's perfectly fine. Like, as an autistic person, I have moments where I'm too overstimulated to properly form thoughts into words, and then I also don't like talking. Like, that is okay. So I think this is a confession. It's a good confession, but I don't think OP has entirely grasped what not talking means to them and how it helps them and how serious it is. It's not just a little quirk. I think it is serious to them and they should treat themselves like it's serious. And I think if the girlfriend really likes him, she will get used to this, or she will be able to learn and understand, and maybe they can learn together. That would be nice. The next confession is called I treated one store like my personal free rental shop. There was this electronics store with a really generous return policy. I figured out I could buy things, use them for a week or two, clean everything up, put it back in the box, then return it saying it wasn't what I expected. The first time actually worked, and after that I kept doing the same damn thing with different stuff. I borrowed speakers for a party, a pressure washer to clean my driveway, and even a fancy camping stove for one weekend trip. Every single time I got all my money back. I started feeling smart, like I'd found some secret life hack nobody else knew about. One day the employee at the return counter looked at my receipt, looked at me and said, "You really don't keep anything, huh?" He wasn't rude, but I could tell he knew exactly what kind of bullshit I was pulling. He still processed the refund, but I felt my face getting hot. I never went back to that store after that. I used to laugh about it with my friends because I thought I was beating the system. Now I just think I was being a cheap asshole. The store probably survived just fine, but that doesn't make what I did any less shitty. I wasn't returning things because they were defective, I was just too damn selfish to pay for the stuff I wanted to use. From a consumer's perspective, I'm like, I don't like capitalism, and then pulling something like this would be okay, I guess. And it's technically allowed, but it would be annoying for the employees if you keep doing that, because they know, and you're at the store to buy things, and the store is not meant to borrow things. If you can pay for it and you do use it, you should pay for it, because that's how that works. There are better ways to end capitalism than just everyone doing this, because everyone won't start doing this. So in the end, it is just selfish and it's just annoying for the employees. And also, the stuff you used goes to another person, and that's not the purpose. If you buy something, you want something that is new and not returned, unless you choose for that by either going to a thrift store or choosing a refurbished item. So it is just very annoying, I think, and not the way to do this, but like, he agrees, I would assume. I think the confession here is more that he feels bad about it because he says that they used to laugh about it with their friends and stuff, and it can be funny, but I'm happy they stopped doing this because it's not great. The next one is relationship drama. Those are always fun. My ex cheated on me for a whole year and I made him pay for a fake abortion and sent him to therapy. I dated a guy for 2 years and he got another girlfriend without me knowing. I felt like there was something wrong, and I always told him about how I hated traitors and that all the women in my family were already betrayed and how it destroyed a part of them. I found out from an Instagram post of a girl who was having dinner at a table that was truly similar to his house. After talking to the girl, and she threatened to beat me for being a mistress and making several ridiculous stories about how nothing was going to separate the two, I decided to act. My plan was to join another woman and take revenge together, but after her post I saw that I would have to do everything myself. And to make matters worse, my ex defended her and cursed me for having hindered their case, and the week that this happened, the other woman called me all day to find out if I was talking to her gifts from God. That is rude. Like, if you're cheating on someone, you are not going to blame the person person you're cheating on. That's insanely weird, and also this guy needs therapy. So I agree with that. I sent him a week later adulterated pregnancy test and an ultrasound of my kidney and said that I was pregnant. I could say that I wanted an abortion and that I needed money to do it. In my country, it's very expensive. Whenever the other woman texted me, I said that the only thing I needed to solve with him was the money he owed me and that I would have to do a medical procedure because of him. But without going into too much detail, it is enough for her to be curious. I think she can guess. And whenever that happened, he cursed me and I used it to be able to say the worst things that came to mind, since you are cheating like your father who beat your father abandoned you for this, or anything I knew were his traumas. That is a little mean, triggering someone's traumas. He's also being incredibly rude by blaming her for him cheating. Not that he said like, you are bad, I'm cheating on you, good luck with the rest of it, but like, she hindered his cheating and now she is the bad guy in this, according to him. After a week, his relationship ended with the other woman and he paid for the abortion. Yay for that. I'm not sure paying for the abortion because there was no pregnancy, but okay. That day we saw each other for the last time and he cried and begged on his knees for me to have the baby and that he would do things right this time. I don't regret it, but I was very scared at the time. I think things could have ended very badly. A few weeks ago, I learned that he has been going to therapy and staying away from women. Anyway, I think my only regret is that I could have done worse. Maybe send Mormons to his house or register him in every possible spam. My advice is to not cheat on your girlfriend. That is very sound advice. I do agree with that. I do think registering him for any kind of spam would have been better than the fake abortion, because now you scammed him out of money, which I feel like is technically illegal in a lot of places. And it's nice that he went to therapy. I don't think she made him go to therapy. Maybe he saw his wrongdoings. I also hope she doesn't go back to him, because cheating on someone is abuse, and then especially also acting like that, like saying, oh, you are hindering my relationship with this other person that is not you, even though you are my partner. That is just victim blaming, basically. So it is bad. I'm happy for her that she got to act out on her feelings some way and that she feels better about herself now. I don't agree with the way she did this, but it's a good confession. Like, she's confessing to her sins of probably breaking the law, and I'm happy for her that she got out. This person says, I lied about an internship to graduate from university. When I was in college, I could either do a capstone project or an internship in my last semester, and I absolutely hated the idea of doing a capstone project. I got an internship at a local business, so I enrolled in the internship class for the semester. Maybe 6 weeks into the semester, the internship was awful and so boring. It wasn't at all what I thought I'd be doing. I hated being there and I dreaded going. One Friday, I just left early on a day my boss wasn't there. The next Monday, she asked me if anything had happened on Friday. I didn't come clean, and she told me she had asked someone else to keep an eye on me, and that person had told her I left early and didn't come back. She fired me the day she told me she wanted it to be a lesson. I think that's fair that she fired you. You didn't tell her that the internship was not what you thought it was, which is a problem on the company's side, which you should have told them earlier if you wanted a successful internship. And if you just don't show up without any reason and just go home without any reason, you're gonna be fired in the quote-unquote real world too. So, that's how that works. So I think that's fair. I told my career counselor at school that I lost the internship, but I didn't go into details about the reason, which I think is also a problem. Tell someone why you did that, because if the company is not doing what they should be doing, they shouldn't be an internship company. Maybe they have a contact within the school and the school is funneling interns to them, and if the company is doing badly at that, they shouldn't be doing that. I asked if I got another internship, I could still graduate. At the internship I just got fired from, I had only done about 60 hours and I needed 170 hours. She said yes, as long as I get to 170 hours between both internships, I could graduate. I was telling my mom about the situation I got myself into, and it was her idea for me to intern at her medical clinic. She and I didn't have the same last name due to my parents being divorced, so we thought no one would bat an eye. I think it would also be okay to just be an intern at your parents' company. Like, I also am an intern, yay, at my own company, and I'm also interning somewhere else due to someone I know, and I think that's going great, and it can be a genuine good internship, and it can be with family or someone you know, and it will be great. I've also interned with someone that was also not a family member, but I had known this guy since I was literally 10 years old. It was great. This guy was like 75 years old at the time. It was great, maybe because I knew them quite well, or because I was comfortable with these people and didn't have to get to know other people, because these were also places that did not really have a lot of people like working in them that I had to get to know for what I was doing anyway. And for me, that works out great because then I can focus on my work and not on all the social things that I'm having a hard time with because I have ADHD and I'm autistic. That works great. So I think that should be legal, but I'm not sure where this person is and how the rules are. She filled out all the internship paperwork for me. I never actually did any work for my mom's clinic. I lied about doing the rest of my hours at this fake internship and I graduated. I felt bad about it for a little bit, but I got my first job offer after I graduated and never looked back. And I definitely have never stolen time at a job ever again, so that boss did teach me something. Edit, I did a legit internship in my second year, so I don't feel bad about lying about the crappy one I mentioned in this post. Just because my good internship was in my second year instead of my fourth meant I had to do another one. How idiotic is that? No god for me anymore. I think most study programs have thought deeply about how they want the students to spend their time, and if a second internship or doing a capstone project and doing another internship would give you the same amount of experience that is important for you to land in the job market, I think you should do it, and it's most likely better for you if you do it. However, this person turned out great, but I think that might also have been due to luck, and maybe they also took a lot away from their first internship and that could have helped them. But for most students, it would have been best to do the other internship anyway. The comments don't really agree with me because they think that universities just want you to stay there because you pay them a lot, or that they set arbitrary goalposts, and I think that really depends on the school. So I disagree with most of these comments, and I don't think this was the right way to do this, but it turned out fine and it was fine, and the only person you would bite in the ass with this is yourself. So I don't think the university is necessarily going to care a lot. The next confession we'll read is called "I'm the reason my uncle ruined my dad's wedding reception and nobody knows it was my fault. When I was 11, my dad met my stepmom and I absolutely hated her. My parents split up when I was 3, so I don't remember them ever being together. It wasn't that I wanted them to get back together. I actually loved having 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, etc. I just didn't want to share my dad with anyone. I wanted it to stay me, my brother, and my dad. So when she came into our lives, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. When I was 13, they moved in together and a year later they got engaged. They got married when I was 15 and I was one of the bridesmaids because they wanted me to be involved. My uncle was my dad's best man. Something important to mention is that before the wedding, my uncle really liked my stepmom. As far as I know, he fully supported their relationship and wanted them to get married. He never said anything negative about her or the wedding. After the ceremony, my uncle and I were sitting together in one of the rooms while he was having a few drinks. We started talking about the wedding and I admitted that I didn't want them to get married. He actually tried to reassure me at first. He told me everything would be okay and that my dad getting married didn't mean he'd love my brother and me any less. He even tried to come up with family things that we could all do together with her, but I just kept going. I told him every fear I had. I said I was worried my dad would become distant, that he'd put his new wife before us, that our relationship would never be the same, and that I wished the wedding wasn't happening. That I thought it would mean I wouldn't get a chance to be with him, my dad's other siblings, or my cousins anymore, because my dad would be so busy with her family. I even brought up examples of how my dad has been spending more time with her family and that I hadn't visited him or much of my dad's family in a while. The more I talked, the more his attitude seemed to change. He started agreeing with me and saying that my dad would become distant and that he didn't want to lose his brother. Looking back, I genuinely talked him into seeing the wedding differently. As the night went on, he got really drunk. He ended up causing a huge scene. He shouted at people, told my dad he didn't support his choices, and then disappeared to his hotel room. He completely missed his best man's speech, so my other uncle had to make one up on the spot. Instead of everyone celebrating my dad and my stepmom, everyone was talking about him. Before that conversation, as far as I know, he was happy for them and wanted them to get married. By the time we finished talking, I had unloaded every insecurity and worst case scenario I'd been imagining onto him. I encouraged him to speak to my dad and other relatives about how he felt. I even asked him to make a speech and express his opinion, which he said he wouldn't do. But once he'd been drinking more, he actually did. Later that night, my dad pulled me aside and had a really honest conversation with me. He explained what life would look like now, how much my stepmom meant to him, but also reassured me that my brother and I would always come first and that nothing would ever change that. I think that because this person had had her doubts for so long, the dad should absolutely have done this earlier. The thing that makes this confession even worse is that I absolutely love my stepmom now. She's genuinely one of my favorite people in the world and she's supported me through some of my hardest times in my life. I honestly couldn't imagine life without her now. My uncle doesn't even remember that conversation, but I still think about it all the time. Every time I think back to that wedding, I can't stop wondering if I ruined part of my dad's wedding day just because I couldn't keep my first to myself. This situation is still talked about to this day when my dad and stepmom's wedding is mentioned too. I've never told anyone this and I don't think I ever will, but I had to get it off my chest. There's also an update. Yesterday I drove over to my dad's house for dinner. While we were eating, I brought up the wedding and told them what happened. It was amazing to get it all off my chest. They were both very confused at first. Once they asked me a few questions about what happened, they understood what I was telling them. My stepmom told me that, to her, it was not my fault whatsoever. My dad was, at first, a little upset because my uncle was never one of those people in my life that I could talk to. My dad told me that he wishes he had gone to him instead, but he said that since I was a frustrated teenager, it's not something that they'd ever hold against me. They said that their wedding was still amazing and that I didn't make my uncle behave that way and that he should have been more mature. I told them that I'm so grateful for my stepmom now and that my feelings have changed since then. We spoke about it some more for a little while and then continued talking about other things in our lives. Before heading home, my stepmom spoke to me privately and we had a very nice conversation. She told me that she wishes she could have had a closer bond with me from the start and a lot of old feelings came up, so I did cry. We said goodbye and I went back to my place. I'm glad we had the talk and that I told them everything. They called me this morning and reiterated that they don't blame me for anything and invited me over for dinner next week with my stepsisters. Thank you for all the kind words. I'm glad I got it off my chest. Well, that was about the best update we could get from this, but I don't think this entire wedding thing was OP's fault, as she said in the update. She was a child back then, and although 15 is an age where you can expect someone to have a little bit of responsibility, again, they were a child with feelings that they were telling to a family member, and the uncle misused that and drank a lot, and he was the person responsible for him crashing out at the wedding. She had absolutely nothing to do with that. That the uncle made that happen is his fault and absolutely not her fault. So I'm happy her family also told her that, and I'm happy she got it off her chest. The confession subreddit, I feel like, is not really meant for it to go further than the subreddit. Like, you get something off your chest that you have been wanting to tell people for a while. That's about it. But I think it's great that the people in the comments encouraged her to talk about it and that she actually did. And I assume that she feels a lot lighter now that it had come out and that she maybe has realized that it was not her fault. Every time I hear stories about someone crashing out in the middle of somewhere, especially when it's not about them at all, I get very confused. There is a very few amount of situations where that is appropriate. I read another thing on Reddit where a child saw his uncle or aunt that was getting married that day kiss someone else in the hallway from the wedding, and then this child told that to another person and then the wedding was cancelled. It would have been valid if some adult had been crashing out over that, of course, but in this situation absolutely not. It's clear that the uncle had a crush on the stepmom, that he in fact did not support his wedding, and that he got drunk and he shouldn't have. I think we'll leave it at that today. I love reading some internet tea. I hope you do too. Thank you for watching. If you like my little video, please press the wonderful shiny like and subscribe buttons, and then I will see you next time. Ciao!